Wow, what we woke up to this morning. Kevin McCarthy gets torched overnight. Matt Gaetz calling for him to be removed. That's how bad it got. Did you catch all the movements that just occurred? Well, that's what we're going to cover here today, and it all started with one tweet. I'd like to report a squatter. And I'm going to read to you the letter that came along with it. Now, before we do, I want to thank each and every one of you who checked your subscriptions, resubscribed, because suddenly the number is back on the rise again. Wow, I can't tell you enough how much it means to me that each new subscriber subscribes and each existing subscriber makes sure they're still subscribed with the bell checked so you're alerted to upcoming broadcast. Amazingly, over the 72 hours I've announced this, again, subscribers up and video views are up. Wow. Thank you each for your support. And in case this happens again, I must remind you, please get to restrictedrepublic.com. Annual discount code 2023. For 2 years, you're going to be charged $39.50 each year. Once this year and once next. That's half off the annual subscription rate. Get there today because who knows what will happen tomorrow? And if you need a moment of levity, a little bit of fun in your life, get over to we'reforkedup.com. I'm going to put a link above or go simply to our website and subscribe, we'reforkedup.com. If you're easily offended, you don't like to laugh, definitely not the site for you. So to break the monotony, we created we'reforkedup.com just for you. Link above, click on it. But now let's get back to this broadcast. The tweet heard round the world, and I'd be making a little bit too much out of it, so I'm not going to, but it does frame in the story. I'd like to report a squatter. Why is this happening? California Republican, which should throw up flags immediately, Kevin McCarthy, who, by the way, as the disclaimer, I am no fan of whatsoever. I'm going to start the broadcast by saying that. Has so far failed in his quest to be elected to Speaker of the House. He lost on his first vote, then his second, then his third. According to this article, that was the first time the majority party failed to quickly elect its leader in 100 years. Go Republicans. Great job. Didn't call that many weeks ago. Even when you're given power, you have no idea what to do with it, and that is causing the divide between McCarthy and Gaetz and many others, because he isn't the only holdout. I think we're up to 20 holdouts now. But the story gets more interesting, and it gets more interesting quickly. It's maneuvers that McCarthy did over the last 24 hours that will have you scratching your head as to why. Now, what is Donald Trump's take on all of this? Former President Trump declined to say if he's sticking by his endorsement of Kevin McCarthy. Another one of those questionable decisions. If Trump struggles anywhere, it's who he decides to align with and partner with. He has shown a weakness in that category since day one. Yet, what does he say? We'll see what happens. We'll see how it all works out. This is where Trump and I would depart. I do not want Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker of the House, plain and simple. But why, would you ask? Because it's those that are supporting Kevin McCarthy that puts his nomination into the greatest question. Here we have Representative Dan Crenshaw speaking out against, and by the way, mind you, when you listen to this, he calls the people holding out against McCarthy narcissists. The same man who appeared as a superhero in one of his campaign ads. Just saying before I played his clip.
But if you're a narcissist and you believe that your opinion is so much more important than everyone else's, then you'll keep going. And you'll threaten to tear down the team for the benefit of the Democrats. They think they're not going to get the committees they want. Well, obviously they won't, but it's going to be so much worse than that. You know, they are enemies now. They have made it clear that they prefer a Democrat agenda than a Republican one.
How do you like Crenshaw going right to threats? They're our enemies now. If they think they're going to get to committees, they're not. Oh, it's going to be so far worse than that. They stand for a Democrat agenda. Are we serious? Dad, you really believe anyone believes that. What you meant to say and what you should have said is they don't stand for what some would consider being the uniparty agenda, where everyone simply gets along, votes down the same line, and everything magically goes through, including spending like the omnibus bill, which has resulted in many of these holdouts and many of us now seeing that no matter how desperate our situation is, the only interest of within any of these spending bills is the interest of those we elected. Definitely not we the people, and that shines and glares through is an example. I'm going to play an example of that here in just a few seconds, where somebody finally on the House of Representatives floor actually calls that out. But let's go back to this letter first from Matt Gaetz, written last night. It goes to the architect of the Capitol, the Honorable J. Brett Blatton. I write to inform you that the Speaker of the House office located in the U.S. Capitol building is currently occupied by Representative Kevin McCarthy. Yet, the 118th Congress has not elected a Speaker of the House. After 3 undecided votes, no member can lay claim to this office. What is the basis in law, House rule, or precedent to allow someone who is placed second in 3 successive Speaker elections to occupy the Speaker of the House office? How long will he remain there before he is considered a squatter? Please write back promptly, as it seems Mr. McCarthy can no longer be considered Speaker designate following today's balloting. Matt Gaetz. I don't always agree with Matt Gaetz, but on this one, it literally brings a tear to my eye. Not only because I don't approve of McCarthy being Speaker of the House, but because how true is what he said? How does somebody just assume they have the office? Well, that's the way things work in politics. They assume authority and power that they simply don't have. What about Jim Jordan? I know he also voted for McCarthy, which makes 0 sense. Personally, I believe he would be a better Speaker of the House. I look forward to your comments, seeing what you feel about that. But the bigger issue is this. In one of the worst climates that we faced, a growing deficit, our pocketbooks being empty, our fuel costs being higher than ever, things crumbling for us, the entire Republican Party could barely squeak out a victory in the midterms. Republicans barely won the House. Now can they run it? They're showing they can't. And Kevin McCarthy's not going to be the one to save us from that. Did he deliver us a very big win in the midterms? No, of course he didn't. None of them did. So why would it be different coming into election 2024? Do we want Kevin McCarthy at the helm of that ship? No, of course we don't. Not if you're a conservative Republican looking for a conservative Republican president. McCarthy won't be the one to deliver that to you. He, in some words, is Democrat light. No difference, as is Crenshaw. We can use whatever term you prefer. Some use rhino, some use Democrat light, whichever you like. Really, they both fit the bill. And many, many others do too. As a matter of fact, it's many who are pushing for him to be Speaker. Well, others, like Representative Chip Roy, are not pushing for him to be Speaker. As a matter of fact, he actually finally said something we all wanted to hear on the House floor.
Through the decision of choosing a Speaker. This is not personal. It's not. This is about the future of the country. This is about the direction of the country. American people who are looking at this body and wondering why we can pass $1.7 trillion bills that are unpaid for. They can just slide in $45 billion for Ukraine but not pay for it. $40 billion for emergency spending and not pay for it. 10% increase in defense spending, 6% increase in non-defense spending and not pay for it. And not do a thing except put language in a bill that prohibits our ability to use the money to secure the border.
Bravissimo, bravo. That's exactly what we need to hear, and we need to hear more of it. Chip Roy obviously also being a staunch opposition to Kevin McCarthy. And it's moments like that that you understand why. Now, they've made some demands. McCarthy has given in to some of these demands. Some voters have no idea what Republicans stand for. Let's start there. Why, for instance, the Republicans in the House and the Senate helped to pass a $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill, obliterating the party's manager, and the claims of fiscal sobriety? It's a darn good question. One that's not asked and not answered very often. There's technically no reason whatsoever, but they rammed the bill through, which is one of the demands that the Republicans are making, that they at least have 72 hours to review a bill. I would have made it longer, but I guess that's what they're moving towards. When excess spending has triggered unprecedented deficits and rising prices, which is another one of the demands we're about to get to, how to address that. The first demand is that the new House adopt, or actually re-adopt, because Nancy Pelosi got rid of it, a rule first proposed by Thomas Jefferson that allowed members to vacate the chair or remove the speaker, which was in place from 1801 to 2018, when it was eliminated under former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. These holdouts want that back. I 100% agree with that demand. Second, the rule allows any 5 members to call a vote to remove the speaker at any time. This process could be disruptive for sure. Oh, we'd hate to disrupt them writing those blank checks to themselves. But it also makes the leaders of the House accountable, which they have not been. The second demand would require a Dear Colleague letter put in that representatives legislate in a responsible manner on behalf of our constituents. What a novel thought. Actually negotiate for us, we the people. It specifically requires all bills to be presented to lawmakers at least 72 hours before they are required to vote on them, so that they are allowed to read it and represent those who elected them. I, too, stand behind this demand, if you'd like to call it that. I don't think these are demands. I think these are common sense measures. The letter includes a note saying no amendment has been offered by individual members on the House floor in open debate since May of 2016. No law, no amendment has been offered by an individual member of the House floor since 2016. Also put in place by Pelosi, also something they want removed. The third demand is that GOP leadership must stop interfering in Republican primary contests, with the conservatives saying weaken some contests in the 2022 midterms. We saw that. We didn't get the major victory that was expected the Republicans to get. They simply didn't do it. But Mitch McConnell interfered. McCarthy got involved. People got involved in midterms. It should be decided by we, the people, voting for those candidates. But that's not what happened. Perhaps most significant, the Freedom Caucus, this is the one that they're having a lot of trouble appeasing right now, wants leadership to pledge to not raise the U.S. debt ceiling without committing to a spending plan that caps outlays and leads to a balanced budget within 10 years. They're never going to agree to that. But it is a reasonable and righteous demand. Simply, before you raise the debt ceiling again, have a way for us to get out of our debt within 10 years and balance the budget. This is the last agenda item anybody wants to talk to. But let's skip to one of the final demands. The Freedom Caucus wants to see a church commission style committee to target weaponized government. The church committee was a select Senate committee established in 1975 and overseen by the Idaho Democrat Senator Frank Church to investigate abuses by the U.S. intelligence and law enforcement agencies, including CIA, FBI, NSA, and IRS. They want this to address what's being released by Twitter and how the government has gotten involved in those platforms. This is beyond a reasonable demand. This should have been done a long time ago by Democrat or Republican, plain and simple. Those are the demands being made. Those are the ones McCarthy can't meet. Rather, he's decided to threaten committee members that you won't serve on a committee if you oppose him, and roll out his roommate at the last minute. Kevin McCarthy now says he stayed in Frank Luntz's penthouse to care for stricken GOP pollster. I don't know if you've heard this story. This is who Kevin lives with when he's in Washington, in the penthouse of Frank Luntz. A problem with that is he also represents special interest. That is Frank Luntz. He represents Nike and Google, just to name a few. Well, now they're bosom buddies up in the penthouse. McCarthy's saying, he didn't realize this would be a controversy many times over. He's saying he's just taking care of a friend who had a stroke a while back And he just wants to make sure he takes his medications and he takes his daily walks. Well, that leaked out overnight. And when you have Newt Gingrich, in addition, sounding the alarm over opposition to Kevin McCarthy, every one of my red flags is now raising as to why the last person who should be Speaker of the House should be Kevin McCarthy. But, unfortunately, I believe maybe shortly after I publish this video, McCarthy will be elected Speaker of the House. I don't often guess these things, and I really, truly hope I'm wrong. And I hope some magical turn happens. But in these cases, we've seen it time and time again. They love establishment candidates. And Kevin McCarthy is nothing more and nothing less. And in that turn, nothing will change if he's elected. We will see. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justus Knight, signing out.